Hello, my friend. The strategic mindset. Transform setbacks into your biggest wins. Listen, I need to share something important with you. Right now, as you're reading this, there are people around you who seem to have figured out something the rest of us are still struggling with. They don't just survive when things go wrong, they actually thrive. They don't panic when problems show up. They handle them like they've been expecting them all along. And here's the thing that might surprise you. They're not smarter than you. They don't have more resources, and they definitely didn't get luckier. The difference? It's all about how they think. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this book. Because once you understand this shift, everything changes for you. Most of us go through life in what I call response mode. Something happens, we react. The phone buzzes, we check it. An email lands in our inbox, we respond immediately. A problem pops up, we scramble to fix it. We're constantly playing defense, always one step behind what's actually happening in our lives. And honestly, it's exhausting. But here's what I've learned, and what I want to share with you. There's another way, a better way. And it starts with shifting from being someone who responds to life to someone who shapes it. From being reactive to being strategic. From hoping things work out to making them work out. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending problems don't exist. This is about developing a framework that helps you see challenges coming before they knock you over. It's about preparing yourself so well that when difficulties show up, you're already 3 steps ahead with solutions ready to go. Think about the last time something unexpected threw your entire week off track. Maybe it was a work crisis, a relationship issue, or a financial emergency. Remember that feeling of being blindsided? That's what we're going to change. Not by preventing problems, because that's impossible, but by becoming the kind of person who handles them so effectively that they barely slow you down. Chapter 1. Why you keep feeling stuck. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be really honest with yourself. How much of your day do you actually control? I mean, truly control, not just go through the motions of? If you're like most people, the answer might be uncomfortable. Because here's what's really happening. You're not driving your life forward. You're being driven by everything happening around you. And I get it, because I've been there too. We all have. You wake up with good intentions. Maybe you've even got a plan for the day, but then your boss sends an urgent email. Your partner needs something handled immediately. Your friend texts with a crisis. Social media pulls you in 15 different directions. And before you know it, it's evening. You're exhausted, and you can't quite remember what you actually accomplished that mattered to you. This is what I call the response trap, and it's keeping you stuck in a cycle that's incredibly hard to break. Here's how it works. When you're constantly reacting to what's happening around you, you never get ahead of anything. You're always catching up, always putting out fires, always in crisis management mode. And here's the brutal part. When you're busy dealing with immediate problems, you don't have time to prevent future problems. So they just keep coming. It's a cycle that feeds itself. Think about it. When do most people start thinking about their health? When they get diagnosed with something. When do they start working on their relationship? When it's already falling apart. When do they think about their career development? When they're unhappy at work or worried about job security? When do they think about their finances? When there's a crisis? See the pattern. Everything's reactive. Everything's a response to something already going wrong. And look, I'm not judging. This is how most of us were taught to operate. We were told that being responsive is good, that handling things quickly shows we're capable, that staying busy means we're productive. But there's a huge difference between being busy and being effective, between moving fast and moving forward. The response trap is dangerous because it creates an illusion. You feel like you're taking action. You feel like you're handling things, and technically you are. But you're not actually getting ahead. You're just keeping up, or trying to. Let me give you an example that might hit close to home. Think about your inbox. How many emails do you get every day that feel urgent, that demand your immediate attention? Now think about this. How many of those emails actually move your life forward in a meaningful way? How many are actually about your priorities versus someone else's? When you're operating reactively, you're constantly responding to other people's agendas. You're letting everyone else's priorities become your priorities. And at the end of the day, you've been incredibly busy accomplishing things that don't really matter to you. So, how do you know if you're caught in this trap? Ask yourself these questions. Do you start your day responding to what's in your inbox or working on what matters most to you? When problems arise, are you surprised or did you see them coming? Are you working on preventing issues or just fixing them after they happen? Do you feel like you're moving towards your goals or just keeping up with demands? Are you creating opportunities or waiting for them to appear? If you're being honest, you probably noticed a pattern in your answers. And that's actually good news, because recognizing that you're operating reactively is the first step toward changing it. Here's what I want you to understand. You're not stuck because you're not capable. You're stuck because you're using a framework that keeps you in reaction mode. It's like trying to win a race while constantly looking backward. You're expending tons of energy, but not actually moving forward effectively. The shift we're talking about isn't about working harder. You're probably already working hard enough. It's about working smarter. It's about changing your entire approach from reactive to strategic, from defensive to proactive, from responding to creating. And I know what you might be thinking. That sounds great, but my life is just too unpredictable. Too many things I can't control keep happening. I hear you. Life is unpredictable. But here's the thing. Most problems follow patterns. Markets go through cycles. Relationships face predictable challenges. Health issues arise from neglect. Technology changes regularly. People's behavior is more predictable than we think. When you start paying attention to these patterns, you stop being surprised all the time. You start seeing things coming. And when you see things coming, you can prepare for them. That's when everything changes. Let me share something that might shift your perspective. Strategic people don't avoid problems. They just aren't caught off guard by them. They've thought through scenarios ahead of time. They've prepared responses. They've built systems that prevent many problems from even occurring. Think about someone you know who always seems calm during chaos. Someone who handles crises without falling apart. What's their secret? It's not that they don't face challenges. It's that they've mentally prepared for challenges. They've thought through possibilities. They've developed responses before they needed them. That's what we're building toward. Not a perfect life without problems, because that doesn't exist, but a framework that helps you handle problems so effectively that they stop derailing you. That helps you see opportunities others miss because they're too caught up in reactive mode. The good news? You can start shifting today, right now. It doesn't require a complete life overhaul. It starts with awareness, with noticing when you're operating reactively versus strategically, with asking better questions, with making small shifts in how you approach your day. Because here's what I've seen time and time again. Once people understand they've been stuck in reactive mode, they can't unsee it. And once they can't unsee it, they start making different choices, small ones at first, but those small choices compound. They build on each other, and before long, you're operating from a completely different framework. You're no longer at the mercy of whatever happens to you. You're creating what happens. You're no longer surprised by challenges. You're prepared for them. You're no longer scrambling for solutions. You've already thought them through. That's the shift. That's what this book is about. And it starts right here, right now, with recognizing that the way you've been operating isn't the only way. There's another approach, a better one, and you're completely capable of learning it. Chapter 2. Seeing Around Corners. You know what separates people who consistently succeed from everyone else? It's not that they're smarter or work harder. It's that they see what's coming before it arrives. While everyone else is getting blindsided by changes and challenges, these people are already positioning themselves for what's next. And I want to let you in on a secret. This isn't a special gift. It's a skill, and you can develop it. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're driving down a highway. Most people only look at the car directly in front of them. So when that car suddenly brakes, they barely have time to react. But experienced drivers, they're looking several cars ahead. They're noticing brake lights far down the road. They're seeing traffic patterns developing. They're already easing off the gas before they need to slam the brakes. Same road, same cars, completely different experience. Because they're seeing further ahead. That's exactly how this works in life. Most of us only see what's right in front of us, the immediate task, the current problem, the present moment. But strategic thinkers, they're looking further down the road. They're noticing patterns. They're spotting early warning signs. They're preparing for what's developing. And here's the beautiful part. Once you learn to do this, you stop feeling like life is constantly ambushing you, because you're seeing things coming with enough time to prepare. Let me give you some real examples of how this plays out. Think about your relationships. Most people don't notice problems until they're already serious. But if you're paying attention, you can see the warning signs way earlier. Communication starting to feel off. Less quality time together. Little frustrations being ignored instead of addressed. Different priorities emerging. These aren't sudden developments. They're patterns that build over time. And when you notice them early, you can address them before they become real problems. You can have conversations when they're still easy instead of waiting until they're necessary and difficult. Same thing with your career. Job security doesn't disappear overnight. There are usually signs: your industry changing, your company struggling, your skills becoming less relevant, new technologies emerging. But most people don't pay attention to these signals until they're already in trouble, until they're laid off or struggling to find opportunities. Strategic thinkers see these patterns developing. They're updating their skills before they become obsolete. They're building their network before they need it. They're positioning themselves for opportunities while everyone else is still comfortable. Or think about your health. Your body gives you signals way before major problems develop. Energy levels dropping, sleep quality decreasing, small pains appearing, stress building up. But most of us ignore these signals until they become serious issues. Until our doctor tells us we need to make changes. What if instead you paid attention to these early warnings? What if you addressed small issues before they became big ones? How different would your health trajectory look? This is what I mean by seeing around corners. It's developing the awareness to notice patterns and signals that most people miss, and then having the discipline to act on what you're seeing before you have to. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like worrying about everything that could go wrong. But that's not what this is. This isn't about being anxious or paranoid. It's about being observant and prepared. There's a huge difference between worry and awareness. Worry is emotional and unproductive. It keeps you up at night without leading to action. Awareness is clear-headed and practical. It helps you prepare so you can sleep well at night. Let me break down how you actually develop this skill. It comes down to 3 things: paying attention, recognizing patterns, and preparing responses. First, paying attention. This means actively monitoring the things that matter most in your life. Not obsessively, just consistently. It means checking in with yourself and asking, how's my energy level? How are my key relationships? How's my work situation? How's my financial position? What's changing in my industry or field? You're not looking for problems. You're looking for shifts, changes, trends, things that are developing, and you're doing this regularly enough that you notice when things start moving in a concerning direction. Second, recognizing patterns. This is where experience really helps, but you can accelerate it by studying patterns in different areas. Markets tend to move in cycles. Relationships go through predictable phases. Health issues develop from consistent habits. Career opportunities emerge from specific conditions. The more you study these patterns, the better you get at spotting them in your own life. You start recognizing, oh, this feels like the beginning of that pattern I've seen before. And that recognition gives you the heads up you need. Third, preparing responses. This is the part most people skip. They might notice concerning patterns, but they don't actually prepare for them. They just hope things will work out differently this time. Strategic thinkers do something different. When they notice a pattern developing, they think through scenarios. If this continues, what might happen? What would I do in that situation? What preparation would help me handle it better? They're not trying to predict exactly what will happen. That's impossible. They're just thinking through possibilities and getting mentally and practically prepared for different scenarios. Here's a practical example. Let's say you notice your industry seems to be heading toward more automation and AI integration. Most people would just watch this happen and hope their job stays safe. A strategic thinker would ask, what skills would make me valuable even as automation increases? What should I be learning now? What relationships should I be building? What positioning would serve me well? They're not panicking, they're preparing, and when changes actually come, they're ready, maybe even excited, because they've prepared themselves to benefit from the change instead of being threatened by it. Or let's say you notice some tension building in an important relationship. Most people would ignore it and hope it goes away. A strategic thinker would recognize this is an early signal. If I address this now, it's a small conversation. If I wait, it becomes a big problem. So they have the conversation early when it's still relatively easy. The beautiful thing about developing this skill is that it reduces stress rather than creating it. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You'd think that paying attention to potential problems would make you more anxious. But it works the opposite way. When you're aware and prepared, you feel more in control. You're not worried about being blindsided because you're paying attention. You're not stressed about being unprepared because you've thought things through. You're not anxious about the future because you've prepared for multiple scenarios. It's people who aren't paying attention who live with constant background anxiety. Because deep down, they know they're not prepared. They know they're not paying attention. They know that problems could hit them at any moment and they wouldn't see them coming. That's the stressful way to live. Being aware and prepared, that's actually the peaceful way. So let me give you some practical steps to start developing this skill. First, set up what I call checkpoint moments. These are regular times when you deliberately pause and assess what's happening in key areas of your life. Maybe it's Sunday evening. Maybe it's the first of each month. Whatever works for you. During these checkpoints, you're asking yourself, what's changing? What patterns am I noticing? What early signals am I seeing? What opportunities are developing? What challenges might be coming? You're not overthinking it. You're just consciously paying attention instead of letting life happen to you. Second, study the patterns in your field and in life generally. Read about how industries change. Learn about relationship dynamics. Understand how health issues develop. Study economic cycles. The more you understand these patterns intellectually, the better you'll recognize them when they're happening to you. Third, develop the habit of scenario thinking. When you notice something changing, spend a few minutes thinking through. If this continues, where might it lead? What would I do in that situation? What preparation would help? You're not trying to predict the future perfectly. You're just reducing the chance that future developments catch you completely off guard. Fourth, create early warning systems for yourself. These are specific indicators you track that signal when something needs attention. Maybe it's certain metrics in your business. Maybe it's specific feelings in your relationships. Maybe it's particular physical symptoms. Whatever matters most to you. When these indicators start flashing, you know it's time to pay attention and possibly take action. You're not waiting until things are obviously wrong. You're catching them early. And finally, build the discipline to act on what you're seeing. This is crucial. Awareness without action doesn't help you. The whole point of seeing around corners is giving yourself time to prepare and respond before you have to react in crisis mode. When you notice patterns developing, do something about it. Have the conversation, update the skill, make the change. Don't just observe and hope things work out differently. This skill compounds over time. The more you practice it, the better you get at spotting patterns earlier. The earlier you spot them, the more time you have to prepare. The more prepared you are, the better your outcomes. The better your outcomes, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the more opportunities you see and seize. It's a positive spiral that keeps building, and it starts with simply deciding to pay attention, to look further ahead, to see what's developing instead of just what's already here. You don't have to be perfect at this. You just have to be intentional. Start noticing, start recognizing, start preparing, and watch how much more in control of your life you begin to feel. Chapter 3. Building your personal operating system. Okay, let's talk about something that might sound a bit technical, but I promise it's going to click for you in a really powerful way. You need a personal operating system. And no, I'm not talking about computers. I'm talking about the framework you use to run your life. Think about it this way. Your phone has an operating system that determines how everything works, how apps run, how information gets processed, how different functions work together. Without that operating system, your phone is just expensive hardware that can't actually do anything. Your life works the same way. You need a system for how you process information, make decisions, set priorities, and take action. Without that system, you're just randomly responding to whatever happens. With it, you're operating efficiently and effectively toward what actually matters to you. And here's what most people don't realize. You already have an operating system. You're already running on something. The question is whether it's one you consciously designed or one that just developed randomly based on habits, reactions, and whatever you picked up from your environment. Most people are running on what I call a default operating system. It's the one that got installed without them thinking about it. It's reactive, scattered, and inefficient. And it's keeping them stuck. What we're going to do is build you a better one that's designed specifically for you and what you want to achieve, one that helps you operate strategically instead of reactively, one that actually serves you instead of running you. The foundation of any good personal operating system is clarity. And I mean real clarity, not the vague, I want to be successful kind of clarity. I'm talking about knowing exactly what you're trying to create in your life and why it matters to you. Because here's the thing. You can't make strategic decisions if you don't know what you're strategizing toward. You can't prioritize effectively if you don't know what's actually important. You can't say no to the wrong things if you don't know what the right things are. So the first component of your operating system is defining your direction with precision. Not just goals, but clear outcomes that you can picture. What does success actually look like for you? What are you building? What matters most? Why does it matter? And I don't mean you need to have your entire life figured out. That's unrealistic and unnecessary. But you need clarity on your current direction. Where are you heading? What are you working toward? What would meaningful progress look like? Write this down. Make it specific. Make it real. Because this becomes your filter for everything else. Every decision, every opportunity, every request for your time gets evaluated against this direction. Does it move me forward or does it pull me sideways? Does it serve my direction or someone else's? The second component is awareness. And by this, I mean systematic awareness of what's actually happening in your life and around you. Remember how we talked about seeing around corners? This is how you make that practical. You need to build regular check-ins into your system. Times when you deliberately pause and assess what's working, what's not, what's changing, what patterns am I noticing, what needs attention, what opportunities am I seeing. This isn't overthinking or analysis paralysis. This is strategic awareness. You're staying connected to reality instead of operating on autopilot. You're catching small issues before they become big ones. You're spotting opportunities while there's still time to act on them. For most people, I recommend weekly reviews at minimum. Sunday evening or Monday morning, take 30 minutes to honestly assess your week. What went well? What didn't? What do you need to adjust? What priorities matter most this coming week? That simple habit alone will put you ahead of 90% of people who just stumble from one week to the next, hoping things work out. The third component is decision-making frameworks. This is huge. Most people make decisions emotionally or impulsively. They go with what feels right in the moment, or they overthink until they're paralyzed, or they just default to whatever's easiest. You need actual frameworks for making choices. Clear criteria that help you evaluate options consistently. Questions you ask yourself before committing to anything. Principles that guide your decisions even when you're tired or emotional or pressured. Here's a simple one I use. Before saying yes to anything, I ask myself 3 questions. Does this align with my direction? Do I have the capacity to do this well? Is this the best use of my time and energy right now? If the answer to all 3 isn't yes, the answer is no. It doesn't matter how good the opportunity seems or how much pressure someone's putting on me. If it doesn't pass that filter, it's not the right move for me right now. You need frameworks like this for different types of decisions, for career choices, for relationship commitments, for how you spend money, for how you invest your time. These frameworks prevent you from making reactive decisions you'll regret later. The fourth component is execution systems, because plans mean nothing if you can't actually implement them effectively. You need structured approaches to getting things done, to turning intentions into actions, to making consistent progress instead of just having good ideas. This means breaking down big goals into manageable steps. It means creating accountability for yourself. It means building habits that make progress automatic instead of something you have to motivate yourself to do every single time. It means having systems for the important recurring things in your life. How you manage your finances, how you maintain your health, how you develop your skills, how you nurture your relationships. These shouldn't be things you handle randomly when you remember. They should be systemized so they happen consistently. The fifth component is adaptation protocols. Life changes. Your circumstances change. What worked last year might not work this year. Your operating system needs to include how you recognize when adjustments are needed and how you make those adjustments without losing momentum. This is about being flexible without being flaky. It's having principles that stay consistent while tactics evolve. It's knowing the difference between temporary setbacks that require persistence and fundamental problems that require course correction. I recommend quarterly reviews where you look at the bigger picture, not just what happened this week, but what's happened over the last 3 months. Are you actually moving in the direction you want? Is your system working? What needs to change? These reviews help you stay aligned with what matters instead of drifting off course gradually without noticing. The sixth component is recovery systems, because even with perfect planning, things will go wrong. You'll face setbacks, you'll make mistakes, you'll encounter obstacles you didn't anticipate. Your operating system needs to include how you handle these situations without falling apart. What do you do when plans fail? How do you process disappointment without letting it derail you? How do you extract lessons from failures? How do you get back on track quickly instead of spiraling? Having predetermined responses to common types of setbacks prevents you from having to figure everything out in the moment when you're already stressed and discouraged. Now, here's what I want you to understand about building this operating system. You don't create it all at once. That would be overwhelming and impractical. You build it gradually. You start with one component. Get it working, then add another, then another. Maybe you start with clarity. Spend time really defining what you're working toward and why it matters. Get that clear. Use it to guide your decisions for a few weeks. Notice how much easier choices become when you have that clarity. Then add in weekly reviews. Start checking in with yourself regularly, noticing patterns, catching issues early, adjusting course as needed. Let that become a habit. Then develop some decision-making frameworks. Create your criteria for different types of choices. Practice using them. Refine them based on how they work. Each piece you add makes your operating system more complete and more effective. And the beautiful thing is, each component supports the others. Clarity makes awareness more useful. Awareness improves decision-making. Good decisions make execution easier. Effective execution makes adaptation less necessary. And good recovery systems support everything else. Over time, you build a comprehensive system that helps you operate effectively regardless of what's happening around you. You're not dependent on motivation or perfect circumstances or having everything figured out. You have a framework that works even when things are uncertain or difficult. This is what separates people who consistently make progress from people who have occasional bursts of productivity, followed by long periods of drifting. It's not discipline or willpower. It's having a system that makes effective operation your default mode instead of something you have to constantly force yourself into. And once you have this system in place, everything gets easier. Not because your life becomes easy, but because you have a reliable framework for handling whatever comes up. You're not reinventing the wheel every time you face a decision or challenge. You're operating from a proven system that works. Start building this today. Pick one component and develop it. Get it working, then add the next one. Within a few months, you'll have a personal operating system that serves you far better than the random default one most people are running on. And that's when you'll really start seeing the difference in your results. Not from working harder, but from operating smarter. From having a system that helps you make better decisions, take better actions, and create better outcomes consistently. Chapter 4. The Future Back Strategy. All right, let me share something with you that's going to sound a bit strange at first, but stick with me because this is incredibly powerful. I want you to imagine that 6 months from now, something you're working on right now has completely failed, not just struggled or hit a bump, actually failed, crashed, and burned. Now, I know that's not pleasant to think about. Your first instinct is probably to push that thought away and focus on positive outcomes. But here's what I've learned. The people who succeed most consistently are the ones who think through failure scenarios before they happen. Not because they're pessimistic, but because they're strategic. This is what I call the future back strategy. Instead of just planning forward and hoping everything works out, you work backward from potential failures to identify what could go wrong. And then you prevent those things from happening in the first place. Think about it like this. When something actually fails, you do a post-mortem. You analyze what went wrong so you can learn from it. But by then, you've already paid the price. You've already lost time, money, energy, opportunities. The damage is done. What if instead you did a pre-mortem? You imagine the failure before it happens, identify what would cause it, and then prevent those causes from occurring. You get all the learning without any of the damage. This isn't about being negative or expecting the worst. It's about being thorough and prepared. It's about protecting yourself and your goals from predictable problems that you could have prevented if you just thought about them ahead of time. Let me give you a real example. Say you're starting a new project at work. A traditional approach would be to plan out all the steps, set a timeline, and get started. You're focused on making it succeed. A future-back approach would add one crucial step. Before you start, you imagine it's 6 months later, and the project has failed. Then you ask yourself, what went wrong? And you force yourself to come up with specific answers. Maybe you realize we didn't get buy-in from key stakeholders, or we underestimated how long certain phases would take, or we didn't account for other projects competing for the same resources, or we assumed people had skills they didn't actually have. These aren't wild guesses. These are predictable problems that sink projects all the time. But most people don't think about them until they're already happening. By then, it's crisis management. By thinking about them in advance, you can prevent them entirely. So in this example, once you've identified those potential failure points, you address them proactively. You get stakeholder buy-in before starting. You build buffer into your timeline. You secure resources in advance. You assess actual skill levels and provide training if needed. Suddenly, your project has a much higher chance of success. Not because you worked harder, but because you thought more strategically about what could go wrong and prevented it. This works for literally anything important in your life. Starting a business? Do a pre-mortem. Imagine it fails. What would cause that? Not enough customers? Running out of cash? Partnership conflicts? Product problems? Then address those potential causes before you launch. Making a major career change? Imagine it doesn't work out. Why not? Wrong fit? Insufficient preparation? Unrealistic expectations? Financial pressures? Then prepare for those scenarios before you make the leap. Trying to build a new habit? Imagine you quit after 2 weeks. What caused that? Too ambitious? No accountability? Competing priorities? Lack of motivation? Then design your approach to prevent those common failure points. The beauty of this strategy is that it forces you to be honest about risks you'd otherwise ignore. When we're excited about something, we naturally focus on the upside. We want it to work, so we minimize the challenges in our minds. We tell ourselves, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out, it won't happen to us. But the future-back strategy makes you confront reality. It makes you acknowledge that yes, these problems could happen to you. They happen to other people all the time, and you're not magically immune. So you'd better prepare for them. Now, here's how to actually do this effectively. When you're doing a pre-mortem, you need to be ruthlessly honest. Don't hold back because you're worried about being negative. The whole point is to identify real vulnerabilities so you can protect against them. Start by asking, what are all the ways this could fail? Don't censor yourself. Write down everything you can think of. The more thorough you are here, the better protected you'll be. Then, for each potential failure point, ask 2 more questions. How likely is this to happen? And how much damage would it cause if it did? This helps you prioritize. Not every risk deserves the same amount of attention. Some things are high probability and high impact. Those need your immediate attention and detailed prevention plans. These are the killers you absolutely must address. Some things are low probability but high impact. These need monitoring systems and basic contingency plans. You can't prevent everything, but you can prepare responses. Some things are high probability but low impact. These you might just accept as normal costs of doing business, not worth extensive preparation. And some things are low probability and low impact. You can probably ignore these entirely. Don't waste energy on unlikely scenarios that wouldn't matter much anyway. Once you've prioritized your risks, develop specific prevention strategies for the important ones. Not vague intentions like, we'll keep an eye on that. Actual plans with concrete actions. For example, if you've identified cash flow as a potential business killer, your prevention strategy might include building a larger cash reserve. Before launching, securing a line of credit, establishing multiple revenue streams, and setting clear financial triggers that indicate when to adjust spending. That's specific. That's actionable. That's actually protecting you against a real risk. After prevention strategies, create contingency plans for things you can't fully prevent. What will you do if this problem arises despite your prevention efforts? Having a plan ready means you can respond quickly and effectively, instead of panicking and making poor decisions. These contingency plans should include specific triggers that tell you when to activate them, clear steps to take, and defined responsibilities if other people are involved. Here's something important. You need to document this. Don't just think through it and move on. Write it down. Create an actual document that outlines your potential failure points, your prevention strategies, and your contingency plans. Why? Because When you're in the middle of actually executing, it's easy to forget these insights. You get caught up in the momentum of doing things. Having it written down means you can refer back to it. You can check, am I actually implementing these prevention strategies? Or have I gotten careless? Also, share relevant parts with anyone involved in what you're doing. If you're working with a team, they need to understand the risks you've identified and the strategies for managing them. This creates collective awareness and responsibility. Now, the future back strategy isn't something you do once and forget. It should become a regular practice for anything important. When you're starting something new, do a pre-mortem. When circumstances change significantly, update your analysis. When you notice early warning signs of problems, revisit your contingency plans. This creates an ongoing cycle of strategic thinking that keeps you prepared for challenges instead of being blindsided by them. And here's what I've found. Once you start using this approach, it becomes second nature. You automatically start thinking, what could go wrong here? How would I handle that? What can I do now to prevent it? It becomes part of how your brain works. This doesn't make you paranoid or negative. It makes you prepared and confident. Because you know you've thought through the risks. You've prepared for problems. You're not hoping everything works out. You've made sure it will work out, or at least that you'll be ready to handle it if it doesn't. People who use this strategy stop being surprised by setbacks. They see problems coming, or they've already prevented them. They operate from a position of strength because they've done the mental work that most people skip. And honestly, this is one of the biggest differentiators between people who succeed consistently and people who have occasional wins mixed with frequent failures. It's not talent or luck. It's this kind of strategic thinking that identifies and addresses problems before they become crises. Start applying this today. Think about something important you're working on. Imagine it fails. Work backward to identify what would cause that failure. Then prevent those causes from occurring. It's that simple and that powerful. Chapter 5. Staying clear when everything's on fire. Let's talk about pressure. Real pressure. The kind where stakes are high, time is short, and everyone's looking at you to make a decision that really matters. The kind where your heart's racing, your mind's spinning, and you can feel the weight of the moment pressing down on you. We've all been there, and if you're being honest, those high-pressure moments probably aren't when you perform your best, right? For most people, pressure destroys performance. It clouds thinking. It triggers emotional reactions. It leads to decisions they later regret. But here's what I want you to understand. Pressure doesn't have to work that way. Some people actually perform better under pressure. They think more clearly, move more decisively, and make better choices when the heat is on. And this isn't a natural gift they were born with. It's a skill they developed. You can develop it too. The first thing you need to know about decision-making under pressure is that your brain literally works differently when you're stressed. The rational, strategic part of your brain becomes less active. The emotional, reactive part becomes hyperactive. This made sense for our ancestors. When facing physical danger, you don't need careful analysis. You need immediate action, fight or run. So our brains evolved to prioritize speed over thoughtfulness when stress levels spike. The problem is Most modern pressure situations aren't physical threats. They're complex challenges that actually require careful thinking. But your brain doesn't know the difference between a deadline at work and a physical threat. It responds the same way. Shut down complex thinking. Activate emergency reactions. This is why people make such poor decisions under pressure. They're literally not thinking with their full brain. They're operating from the part designed for immediate survival, not strategic problem solving. So, how do you override this? How do you maintain access to your strategic thinking when pressure is highest? It starts with recognizing what's happening. When you feel that surge of stress, that's your cue. Your brain is trying to switch into emergency mode, and you need to consciously keep it in strategic mode. Here's a technique that works. When you feel pressure spiking, pause for just 10 seconds. I know that sounds too simple to matter, but it's incredibly powerful. In those 10 seconds, you're interrupting the automatic stress response. You're creating space between the pressure and your reaction. During that pause, take a deep breath. Actually feel yourself breathing. This sends a signal to your nervous system that you're not in immediate danger. It starts to calm the emergency response. Then, ask yourself one question. What's actually at stake here? Not what feels urgent, but what actually matters. This forces your strategic brain to re-engage. It shifts you from reactive emotion to rational evaluation. Often, you'll realize the pressure you're feeling is disproportionate to what's actually at stake. Yes, this matters. No, it's not life or death. That perspective alone reduces the stress enough to think more clearly. Next, you need frameworks for making decisions quickly without sacrificing quality. Because under pressure, you can't do extensive analysis. You don't have time. But you also can't just guess randomly. Here's a simple framework I use. First, clarify exactly what decision needs to be made. Not what might need to be decided later. What needs to be decided right now. Pressure makes us feel like we need to solve everything at once. We don't. We need to solve the immediate decision in front of us. Second, identify your real options. Usually there are fewer options than we think. Most decisions come down to 2 or 3 realistic choices. Don't waste time generating 10 theoretical options. Focus on the actual viable paths forward. Third, evaluate each option against clear criteria. And here's the key. These criteria should be things you've already decided matter to you. Your values, your priorities, your strategic direction, not things you're figuring out on the spot. This is why the work we did earlier on clarity and personal operating systems matters so much. When you already know what you care about and what you're trying to achieve, you can evaluate options against that quickly. You don't have to figure out your priorities in the middle of a high-pressure decision. Fourth, make the call and commit fully to executing it. No second guessing. No half-hearted implementation. You evaluated the options. You made a choice. Now you execute that choice completely. Under pressure, the biggest mistake isn't usually making the wrong decision. It's taking too long to decide or making a decision, but implementing it half-heartedly. Decisiveness matters more than perfection. Here's another crucial element. You need to get comfortable making decisions with incomplete information. Because under pressure, you never have all the information you'd like. You never have perfect certainty. That's part of what creates the pressure. Most people wait for more information, hoping it'll make the decision easier. But often, that information never comes. Or by the time it comes, the opportunity has passed. The decision has been made by default through inaction. Strategic decision makers under pressure accept that uncertainty is normal. They make the best decision they can with available information rather than waiting for perfect information that isn't coming. This requires shifting how you think about decisions. It's not about making the perfect choice. It's about making a good enough choice and executing it excellently. A good decision implemented immediately usually beats a perfect decision implemented too late. Now, let's talk about managing the emotional side of pressure, because even with good frameworks, emotions will still try to hijack your thinking. Fear of making the wrong choice, anxiety about consequences, frustration with the situation. You can't eliminate these emotions. Trying to suppress them just makes them stronger. Instead, you acknowledge them without being controlled by them. Try this. When you notice strong emotions arising, mentally narrate what's happening. I'm feeling anxious about this decision. That's a normal response to pressure. The anxiety isn't giving me useful information, it's just my nervous system reacting. I can feel anxious and still think clearly. This technique creates psychological distance from the emotion. You're observing it rather than being consumed by it. That distance allows you to access your strategic thinking even while the emotion is present. Another powerful technique, think about what you'd advise a friend in this situation. It's amazing how much clearer we think about other people's problems than our own. There's less emotional attachment, so we can see the situation more objectively. So when you're stuck in a high-pressure decision, imagine a friend came to you with this exact situation. What would you tell them to do? Often, the answer becomes immediately obvious. That's probably your answer too. Here's something else that helps. Narrow your time frame. Don't think about all the long-term implications right now. Just think about the next step. What's the right move for the next 24 hours? What should you do today? This makes decisions feel more manageable. You're not solving everything forever. You're just deciding the next right step. You can adjust course later as you get more information. Also, remember that most decisions are reversible or adjustable. We tend to treat decisions like they're permanent and irreversible. Some are, but most aren't. You can change course if new information emerges. You can adjust your approach if initial results aren't what you hoped. Knowing this reduces the pressure. You're not locked into anything forever. You're making the best decision you can right now, with the understanding that you can adapt later if needed. Practice is crucial for developing decision-making skills under pressure. You can't expect to suddenly make great decisions in high-stakes moments if you've never practiced during low-stakes ones. So create practice opportunities. Make small decisions quickly without overthinking. Set time limits for medium-sized decisions. Put yourself in situations where you have to think on your feet. Each time you practice making decisions with limited time and information, you're building the neural pathways that'll serve you when real pressure hits. Also, review your high-pressure decisions afterward. not to beat yourself up about what you could have done differently, but to learn what worked well, what could you improve, what would you do differently next time. This review process accelerates your learning. You extract lessons from each pressure situation that make you better prepared for the next one. One final thing about pressure. Remember that everyone else is probably feeling it too. When you're in a high-pressure situation with others, they're also stressed. Their thinking is also compromised. Their emotions are also heightened. The person who can stay calm and think clearly has a massive advantage, not because they're smarter, but because they're accessing more of their brain's capability. While everyone else is operating on emotional autopilot, you're thinking strategically. This is how people become known as reliable under pressure. It's not that they have nerves of steel. It's that they've trained themselves to override the stress response and maintain clear thinking when it matters most. You can become that person. It just takes understanding how pressure affects thinking, having frameworks for making decisions quickly, and practicing these skills until they become automatic. Start today. The next time you feel pressure, pause for 10 seconds. Breathe. Ask what actually matters. Use a simple framework to evaluate options. Make a decision and commit to it. Notice what works and what doesn't. Refine your approach. Get better each time. Before long, you'll find that pressure situations don't throw you off anymore. You actually perform well when stakes are high. And that capability alone will set you apart from most people around you. Chapter 6. Building your safety net before you need it. Here's a question I want you to really think about. If everything in your life went sideways tomorrow, would you be okay? I don't mean perfectly fine. I mean, would you survive it? Would you recover? Would you have the resources and capabilities to handle it? For most people, the honest answer is no, or at best, maybe. They're operating without real safety nets. They're one major problem away from serious trouble, and they're hoping that problem never comes. That's a scary way to live, even if you're not consciously aware of the fear. It creates this background anxiety that never fully goes away. Because deep down, you know you're vulnerable. You know you're not really prepared for major difficulties. Let me tell you something that might sound harsh, but is actually liberating. Major problems aren't a matter of if, they're a matter of when. Everyone faces serious challenges, job loss, health issues, relationship breakdowns, financial emergencies, market changes, unexpected losses. Not maybe, not probably, definitely. These things happen to everyone eventually. The only question is whether you'll be prepared when they happen to you. And here's the thing. Preparation isn't something you do after problems arrive. It's something you do before. The time to build a safety net is when you don't need one. Because once you need it, it's too late to build it. Think about it like insurance. You don't buy health insurance after you get sick. You don't buy car insurance after you crash. You buy it beforehand when you don't need it. So it's there if you do need it. Your life needs the same kind of protection. Not insurance policies, though. Those help. I'm talking about building comprehensive capability to handle whatever difficulties come your way. This happens at 3 levels: immediate readiness, medium-term resilience, and long-term security. Let me break each one down for you. Immediate readiness is your ability to handle urgent problems without falling apart. This includes things like emergency savings that cover you if income suddenly stops, basic skills for handling common crises, clear communication plans for serious situations, and predetermined responses to likely emergencies. Most people have none of this. When an immediate crisis hits, they panic. They don't know what to do. They don't have resources ready. They make poor decisions because they're figuring everything out in the moment while stressed. Start building immediate readiness by identifying the most likely urgent situations you could face. What would you do if you lost your job tomorrow? If a major unexpected expense hit? If a key relationship suddenly deteriorated? If a health issue arose? For each scenario, develop a specific action plan you could implement immediately. Not vague ideas. Concrete steps. Who would you call? What resources would you access? What decisions would you make? What's your first move? Document these plans. Keep them somewhere accessible. Update them as your situation changes. This way, if crisis hits, you're not starting from zero. You're executing a plan you already developed when you were thinking clearly. Also, build an emergency fund if you don't have one. This is non-negotiable. Even if you start small, start somewhere. The goal is 3 to 6 months of essential expenses saved. This gives you breathing room when financial emergencies hit. I know saving that much feels impossible when you're living paycheck to paycheck. But here's the reality. If you can't save when things are normal, you definitely can't handle an emergency when things aren't normal. So you have to find a way. Cut something. Earn extra. Make it a priority. Your future self will thank you. Medium-term resilience is your ability to adapt and rebuild when circumstances change significantly. This includes skills that transfer across different situations, relationships that provide support during transitions, financial reserves that give you options, and mental frameworks that keep you effective during change. This is about being able to pivot, to adjust, to rebuild if necessary. Not just surviving immediate crises, but handling extended periods of difficulty or major life transitions. Building medium-term resilience requires investing in yourself continuously. Keep developing skills even when you don't immediately need them. Build relationships even when you don't currently need help. Save money beyond emergency funds even when you don't have specific plans for it. All of this creates options, and options are what give you resilience. When change hits and your current path isn't viable anymore, you need other paths available. Skills that let you shift careers if needed. Relationships that might lead to opportunities. Money that buys you time to figure things out. People without options get stuck. They're forced to take whatever's available because they have no alternatives. People with options can choose. They can be strategic about their next move rather than desperate. So ask yourself, what skills could serve you in multiple different situations? What relationships might provide support or opportunities during transitions? What financial cushions would give you freedom to make better choices? Then systematically build those capabilities, not urgently because you don't need them yet, but consistently because you will need them eventually. Long-term security is your capacity to handle extended difficulties and take advantage of major opportunities. This includes substantial financial resources, deep professional networks, comprehensive skill sets, strong personal relationships, and solid health foundations. This is about building to the point where you're genuinely secure, where you could handle almost anything that came your way, where you're not just surviving, but positioned to actually benefit from changes that hurt less prepared people. Long-term security takes years to build. That's why you need to start now. Every month you delay is another month you could have been building towards security. The specific components depend on your situation, but the principle is universal. You're systematically building resources and capabilities that compound over time into real strength and security. Now, here's what I want you to understand about all this preparation. It's not pessimistic. It's not assuming the worst. It's being realistic about the fact that challenges happen and choosing to be ready for them. Prepared people aren't more worried than unprepared people. They're actually less worried because they know they can handle things. They've done the work. They've built the capabilities. They've created the safety nets. It's unprepared people who live with constant background anxiety. They might not think about it consciously, but it's there. That nagging feeling that they're vulnerable, that things could fall apart, that they're not really okay. They're just okay for now as long as nothing goes wrong. That's exhausting and unnecessary because you can change it. Start building your safety net today. Start with immediate readiness. Get 1 month of expenses saved. Develop basic plans for common emergencies. Build from there. Add medium-term resilience. Invest in a skill that could serve you in different contexts. Strengthen a relationship that might matter during transitions. Increase your financial buffer. Work toward long-term security. Not overnight, not all at once, just consistently, month after month, year after year. Building, strengthening, preparing. The beautiful thing about preparation is that it's cumulative. Each step you take builds on previous steps. Each capability you develop makes the next one easier. Each resource you build creates more resources. And the peace of mind? That's immediate. The moment you start taking real steps toward being prepared, you feel different. More confident, more secure, less anxious about the future. Because you're not just hoping things work out. You're making sure you'll be okay either way. You're building the foundation that lets you handle whatever comes. That's real security. That's real strength. And it's completely within your reach if you start building it now. Chapter 7. Controlling your internal state. Let me ask you something personal. When stress hits hard, what happens to you? And I mean really hits. Not minor annoyance stress, but the kind where everything feels like it's collapsing at once. Where the pressure's intense and the stakes feel overwhelming. Do you stay calm and clear-headed? Or does your mind start racing? Do your thoughts spiral? Does your confidence crumble? Do you freeze up or act impulsively? For most people, stress destroys their ability to function well. Their best thinking disappears exactly when they need it most. Their confidence evaporates right when they need to be decisive. Their clarity vanishes precisely when they need to see things clearly. And here's what's interesting. This isn't inevitable. This isn't just how stress works for everyone. Some people actually think more clearly under pressure. They become more focused, more decisive, more effective when the heat is on. The difference isn't genetic. It's not that some people are born with stress-proof brains. The difference is that they've learned to control their internal state instead of being controlled by it. And you can learn this too. First, let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when stress spikes. Your body releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones were designed to help you survive physical threats. They prepare you to fight or run away. They shut down complex thinking because when you're facing a physical danger, you don't need to analyze carefully. You need to act immediately. The problem is your brain can't tell the difference between a physical threat and a psychological one. A difficult conversation triggers the same response as a physical danger. A work deadline creates the same chemical reaction as being chased by a predator. So your body floods with stress hormones, your complex thinking shuts down, and you're left trying to handle a nuanced situation with only your primitive survival brain active. No wonder performance suffers. But here's the key. While you can't stop the initial stress response, you can interrupt it. You can prevent it from taking over completely. You can maintain access to your strategic thinking even when your body is releasing stress hormones. The first technique is what I call the reset breath. When you notice stress spiking, before you do anything else, take one deep, slow breath. I'm talking about a real breath. 4 seconds in through your nose. Hold for 4 seconds. 6 seconds out through your mouth. This does something physiological. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the stress response. It signals to your body that you're not actually in immediate danger. It starts to bring your thinking brain back online. One breath isn't going to completely eliminate stress, but it creates a pause. It interrupts the automatic stress spiral, and in that pause, you can regain some control. Try it right now. Take one of those deep, slow breaths. Notice how even just reading about stress probably created a little tension in your body. Notice how the breath releases some of that tension. That's your reset button. Use it every time you feel stress starting to take over. The second technique is reframing how you think about stress itself. Most people think stress is bad. They think it impairs performance. They think they need to eliminate it to function well. But research shows something interesting. Stress only impairs performance if you believe it impairs performance. If you view stress as harmful, it is harmful. But if you view stress as your body preparing you to perform at a higher level, it actually enhances performance. Think about it. Those stress hormones increase your heart rate, sending more oxygen to your brain. They heighten your alertness and focus. They give you more energy. That's not bad. That's your body helping you rise to a challenge. The problem is, most people interpret these sensations as anxiety or panic. They think, oh no, I'm stressed. I'm going to perform poorly. And that belief becomes self-fulfilling. What if instead, when you noticed your heart rate increasing and your focus sharpening, you thought, good, my body is preparing me to handle this well. I'm getting the energy and focus I need. Same physiological state, completely different interpretation. And that interpretation changes how it affects you. This isn't wishful thinking. This is understanding what stress actually is. Your body mobilizing resources to help you perform. When you view it that way, it helps instead of hurting. So next time you feel stress rising, try saying to yourself, this is my body preparing me to handle this challenge. I'm getting more focused and energized. This is useful. Watch how that simple reframe changes your experience. The third technique is attention management. Under stress, your attention tends to fragment. You start thinking about everything at once. All the things that could go wrong, all the things you need to handle, all the concerns and worries. Your mind jumps from thought to thought without actually processing anything effectively. This scattered attention makes everything feel more overwhelming because you're trying to hold everything in your mind simultaneously, which is impossible. The solution is deliberate focus. You consciously direct your attention to one thing at a time, not everything you're stressed about, just the one thing that matters most right now. Ask yourself, what's the most important thing I need to handle in the next hour? Not everything, just the next hour. What one thing matters most right now? Then put all your attention on that one thing. Let everything else fade to the background temporarily. It's still there, you'll deal with it, but not right now. Right now, you're fully focused on this one thing. This dramatically reduces the feeling of overwhelm because you're not trying to process everything at once anymore. You're handling one thing at a time, which is actually manageable. When that thing is handled, you ask the question again, what's the most important thing for the next hour? And you focus on that. This sequential focus is so much more effective than trying to juggle everything mentally, and it keeps you from getting paralyzed by the sheer volume of everything you're dealing with. The fourth technique is emotional labeling. When strong emotions arise under stress, most people either try to suppress them or get completely overwhelmed by them. Neither approach works well. Suppression creates internal tension and usually makes the emotion stronger. Being overwhelmed by emotions prevents clear thinking and effective action. There's a middle path, acknowledging the emotion without being controlled by it. And a simple way to do this is just naming what you're feeling. I'm feeling anxious about this presentation. I'm feeling frustrated with how this is going. I'm feeling overwhelmed by everything on my plate. Just naming the emotion creates psychological distance from it. You shift from I am anxious to I'm experiencing anxiety. It's a subtle difference, but it matters. You're observing the emotion rather than being consumed by it. And here's what's interesting. Just the act of labeling an emotion reduces its intensity. Brain scans show that when people name their emotions, activity in the amygdala, the fear center, decreases, while activity in the prefrontal cortex, the thinking center, increases. You're literally shifting your brain from emotional reaction to thoughtful observation just by naming what you're feeling. So when strong emotions arise under stress, don't fight them and don't surrender to them. Just acknowledge them. I'm noticing fear. I'm noticing anger. I'm noticing doubt. Then you can think clearly despite the emotion. The emotion is there. You're aware of it, but it's not controlling your thinking or your actions. The fifth technique is pre-stress preparation. This is huge. You can't expect to suddenly develop excellent stress management in the middle of high-pressure situations if you never practice during calm ones. Your stress response is a habit. If your habit is to panic, scatter, and spiral when stress hits, that's what you'll do automatically. If your habit is to breathe, focus, and reframe, That's what you'll do automatically. So you need to practice these techniques during low-stress situations. When you're feeling minor stress about small things, use the reset breath. Practice reframing. Direct your attention deliberately. Label your emotions. Each time you practice, you're strengthening those neural pathways. You're making it more automatic to respond to stress in productive ways rather than destructive ways. Then, when major stress hits, you don't have to figure out what to do. Your brain already knows. It defaults to the patterns you've practiced. This is why some people seem naturally good under pressure. It's not natural. They've just practiced productive stress responses so many times that it's become their automatic pattern. You can build the same capability. Start practicing today with minor stresses. Build the habits during easy times so they're there during hard times. The sixth technique is recovery rituals. Even with excellent stress management, extended high-stress periods drain your mental and emotional resources. You need ways to restore those resources regularly. Recovery rituals are simple practices that help you release accumulated tension and restore your mental energy. This might be a walk after intense work sessions, a few minutes of deliberate breathing, talking through your day with someone you trust, physical exercise, creative activities, whatever helps you genuinely release tension and feel restored. The key is making these rituals non-negotiable, not something you do if you have time, something you do because maintaining your mental state requires it. Think of it like charging your phone. You don't wait until it's completely dead and you're in an emergency before charging it. You charge it regularly to keep it functional. Your mind needs the same kind of maintenance. Build recovery into your routine. After high-stress periods, take time to genuinely recover. Don't just keep pushing through until you break down. Maintain yourself proactively. Here's what all of this adds up to. You develop the ability to maintain clear thinking, steady emotions, and effective action regardless of external circumstances. Stress stops controlling you because you've learned to control your response to stress. This isn't about becoming emotionless or unaffected by difficulties. It's about staying functional and effective even when things are hard. About having access to your full capabilities when you need them most. And once you develop this ability, everything changes. Situations that would have overwhelmed you before become manageable. Pressure that would have crushed your performance before actually enhances it. You become someone who handles difficult situations well instead of someone who falls apart under stress. This is a learnable skill. It takes practice, but it's completely within your reach. Start today. Practice the reset breath. Reframe stress as preparation rather than threat. Focus your attention deliberately. Label your emotions. Practice during calm times. Build recovery rituals. Do this consistently, and within a few months, you'll notice a real difference in how you handle pressure. You'll be calmer, clearer, more effective, more confident, because you'll know you can maintain control of your internal state no matter what's happening externally. That's real strength, and it's yours for the building. Chapter 8. Delivering when everything's falling apart. Okay? Real talk. Anyone can perform when conditions are perfect, when everything's going according to plan, when you're well rested and motivated, when circumstances are favorable. That's easy mode. That doesn't prove anything special. The real test of your capability comes when nothing's going according to plan, when you're exhausted, when circumstances are working against you, when systems are breaking down and pressure is mounting. That's when you find out what you're actually made of. And here's what separates people who achieve significant things from people who don't. The ability to keep delivering results even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Most people's performance crumbles when conditions deteriorate. When things get hard, they fall apart. They abandon their systems. They make reactive decisions. They let chaos contaminate their thinking. They stop being effective right when effectiveness matters most. But strategic performers, they actually get more disciplined when things get chaotic. They stick to their systems more rigorously when others are abandoning theirs. They think more clearly when others are panicking. This isn't because they're superhuman. It's because they've developed specific capabilities that allow them to function well under adverse conditions. And you can develop these same capabilities. The first capability is process discipline. This means maintaining your systematic approaches even when external circumstances are chaotic and it's tempting to abandon structure and just react to whatever's happening. Here's what most people don't understand. Chaos is exactly when you most need your systems. When things are falling apart around you, your processes are what keep you from falling apart too. They're your anchor, your reference point, your guide through the chaos. But maintaining process discipline under pressure requires deep trust in your systems. If you only kind of believe in your approaches, you'll abandon them the moment they feel inconvenient or when alternative approaches seem appealing. This is why the work we did earlier on building your operating system matters so much. You need to have developed and refined your processes during calm periods. You need to have experienced them working. You need to trust them deeply enough that you stick with them even when they're uncomfortable. Think of it like this. A pilot facing an emergency doesn't abandon their training and just improvise randomly. They follow emergency procedures, not because the procedures are fun or easy, but because they're the best chance of surviving the situation. Your processes are the same. They're your emergency procedures. When things go wrong, that's when you need them most. So the first practice is this. Identify your core processes, the fundamental approaches that guide how you think and operate. Write them down. Make them explicit. So when chaos hits, you can refer back to them instead of making everything up on the fly. The second capability is adaptive execution. Now, this might sound like it contradicts what I just said about process discipline, but it doesn't. Your strategic approach stays consistent. Your specific tactics adapt to circumstances. Think of it this way. Your principles don't change, but your application of those principles flexes based on current conditions. For example, your principle might be focus on the highest impact activity first. That doesn't change. But what counts as highest impact might shift as circumstances change. Your principle of strategic focus stays constant. Your tactical application adapts. This requires developing comfort with improvisation within structure. You're not rigidly following a predetermined script. But you're not randomly making things up either. you're applying consistent principles through flexible tactics. This gets better with experience. The more challenging situations you navigate successfully, the better you become at maintaining strategic coherence while adapting tactical responses. The third capability is rapid recovery. Even with excellent discipline and adaptation, things will still go wrong. Plans will fail. Mistakes will happen. Setbacks will occur. The key is getting back on track quickly instead of spiraling or giving up. Rapid recovery requires having predetermined responses. Two common types of failures. When this specific thing goes wrong, you already know the next 3 steps to take. You're not figuring it out in the moment when you're already stressed and discouraged. These recovery protocols should be simple and fast. During crisis situations, you don't have time for complex recovery processes. You need efficient methods that restore capability and momentum quickly. For example, if a key person suddenly becomes unavailable, what's your immediate response? Who do you contact? What gets reprioritized? What's your fallback plan? Having that figured out ahead of time means you can execute recovery immediately instead of wasting time and energy figuring out what to do. The fourth capability is situational awareness. You need to maintain accurate understanding of changing conditions while simultaneously executing current tasks. This dual-track processing allows you to adapt quickly to new developments without losing focus on immediate responsibilities. This is tricky because under pressure, people tend to either focus entirely on execution and miss important changes happening around them, or focus entirely on monitoring conditions and fail to execute effectively. You need both. You need to be executing your current task while also staying aware of what's changing that might require adjustments. The way to do this is systematic information scanning, not trying to monitor everything constantly, which is impossible, but having specific checkpoints where you deliberately assess, has anything changed that I need to know about? Are my assumptions still valid? Do I need to adjust my approach? Maybe it's every hour. Maybe it's at transition points between tasks. Whatever works for your situation. But it's structured and deliberate rather than random or constant. The fifth capability is clear communication under pressure. When things are going wrong, people need more information than usual to maintain effectiveness. But under stress, communication often gets worse. People assume others know things they don't know. They skip important context. They're unclear about priorities. You need to communicate more clearly and more frequently when circumstances are difficult. Over-communication is better than under-communication during chaotic periods. This means being explicit about what's happening, what's changing, what matters most right now, what people need to do, and what support is available. Don't assume people understand. Don't assume they're seeing what you're seeing. Make it clear. Make it simple. Make it frequent. The sixth capability is emotional steadiness. When everything's falling apart, people are looking for signs of how to feel about it. If you're panicking, they'll panic. If you're steady, it helps them stay steady. This doesn't mean faking confidence you don't feel. It means managing your emotions well enough that they don't spread chaos to others. It means being honest about difficulties while maintaining composure and focus on solutions. People can handle hard situations if they see someone handling them calmly. What destroys morale isn't the difficulty itself. It's feeling like no one's in control, like everything's chaos and no one knows what to do. You can be the steady presence that helps others stay functional, not by pretending everything's fine, but by demonstrating that even though things are difficult, you're handling it systematically. Now, here's the opportunity that most people miss. Difficult situations often create competitive advantages. While everyone else is struggling with chaos, your superior execution capability allows you to advance your position. Crises create opportunities. Markets get dislocated. Competitors get distracted by their problems. Conventional approaches stop working. This creates openings for people who can execute well despite difficult conditions. Some of the biggest gains happen during difficult periods, not easy ones, because difficulty separates those who can truly execute from those who can only execute under perfect conditions. So instead of viewing difficult situations as pure threats, start seeing them as opportunities to demonstrate superior capability, as chances to gain ground while others are losing it. This mindset shift alone changes how you approach challenges. You're not just trying to survive them, you're looking to use them to advance. But this only works if you can actually execute well during difficult times, which requires building all these capabilities we've been discussing. Start developing them now, during normal times, when things are relatively calm. Build process discipline, practice adaptive execution, create recovery protocols, develop situational awareness systems, strengthen communication habits, build emotional steadiness, so when difficult times come, and they will, you're prepared. You don't fall apart. You don't abandon your systems. You don't make reactive decisions. You execute well despite the chaos. That's when you prove what you're capable of. That's when you separate yourself from everyone who can only perform when conditions are easy. That's when you create results that actually matter and opportunities that actually advance your position significantly. Anyone can coast when everything's easy. Champions deliver when everything's hard. Build the capabilities that make you a champion. Chapter 9. The Comeback Blueprint. Let's talk about something that's going to happen to you. You're going to fail. Not maybe, definitely. You're going to have setbacks. Plans will fall apart. Goals won't work out. Things you were counting on will disappoint you. This isn't pessimism. This is reality. The question isn't whether you'll face failure. The question is, what happens after? Because here's what I've noticed. Everyone fails, but not everyone comes back from failure. Some people let one setback derail them for months, or years, or permanently. One failure becomes the story they tell themselves about why they can't succeed. Other people, they bounce back fast. They extract the lessons, make adjustments, and come back stronger than before. Their biggest failures become their biggest growth moments. The difference isn't that some people avoid failure. It's that some people have a system for recovering from it. They've got what I call a comeback blueprint, a systematic approach to converting defeats into advantages. And you need one too. The first phase of the comeback blueprint is immediate assessment. This happens right after a failure, when emotions are still high, but before you've had time to distort what actually happened. You need to quickly and accurately understand what went wrong. not the story you'll tell yourself later to protect your ego, not the catastrophized version where everything's ruined forever. The actual objective reality of what happened. Most people skip this step. They either minimize failures to avoid feeling bad, it wasn't that big a deal, or they catastrophize them due to emotional overwhelm. Everything's destroyed. Both responses prevent you from understanding what actually happened. Tactical assessment requires temporarily setting aside your emotions to look at facts. What specifically went wrong? What are the actual consequences? What was lost? What opportunities were missed? What's damaged and what's not? This assessment should be thorough but quick. You're gathering the information you need to make intelligent recovery decisions, not conducting an endless investigation, not beating yourself up, just understanding reality clearly. Speed matters because the faster you assess accurately, the faster you can start recovering. Delayed recovery usually means harder recovery. The second phase is emotional processing. You can't skip this. Failures trigger disappointment, frustration, maybe anger or discouragement. These emotions are normal. They contain information. You need to acknowledge them. But here's the key. Acknowledge them without being controlled by them. Feel what you're feeling. Accept it as a normal response. Extract any useful information the emotions are giving you. Then choose your next actions based on logic rather than emotion. A lot of people try to skip emotional processing. They think they can ignore feelings and jump straight to fixing things. But unprocessed emotions contaminate your thinking. They leak out in unhelpful ways. They drain your energy. They impact future decisions. Better to give yourself a brief but deliberate period to process emotions. Maybe it's a conversation with someone you trust. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's a workout that releases physical tension. Whatever helps you genuinely acknowledge and release the emotions rather than suppressing them. This doesn't need to take long. Hours, not days. You're not wallowing. You're processing so you can move forward cleanly instead of carrying emotional baggage into your recovery. The third phase is systematic failure analysis. This is where you extract maximum learning from what went wrong. This is the gold. The reason failures can make you stronger is because they reveal things you need to improve. But you have to actually do the analysis. You have to dig into what happened and why. Most people skip this because it's uncomfortable. It requires admitting mistakes, acknowledging weaknesses, facing hard truths. But you can't improve what you don't acknowledge. You can't fix problems you don't understand. So you need ruthlessly honest analysis. Ask yourself, what were the immediate causes of this failure? What were the underlying systemic causes? What assumptions proved incorrect? What skills were inadequate? What did I miss? What external factors contributed? Be specific. I didn't work hard enough isn't useful analysis. I underestimated how long Phase 2 would take by 40%, which created a cascade of timeline problems, is useful. You can work with that. Also, examine what went right, even in the failure. Most unsuccessful attempts contain elements that worked. Identifying these helps you preserve what's effective while improving what isn't. Document your analysis. Write it down. This creates a reference you can return to. It also helps you see patterns across multiple failures that reveal systemic issues you need to address. The fourth phase is capability building. This is where you systematically address the weaknesses that contributed to failure, not vague commitments to do better next time. Specific improvements to specific capabilities. If your analysis revealed skill gaps, develop those skills. If it revealed resource shortages, build those resources. If it revealed relationship weaknesses, strengthen those relationships. If it revealed system failures, improve those systems. Be targeted and specific. Don't try to improve everything at once. Focus on the improvements that most directly address the causes of failure. Set clear goals with measurable outcomes. Improve my presentation skills is vague. Complete a presentation training program and deliver 5 practice presentations by end of month is specific and measurable. This phase is where failure becomes valuable. The capabilities you build in response to setbacks often become competitive advantages. Your greatest strengths frequently emerge from your most painful defeats. Many successful people will tell you their biggest failures forced them to develop capabilities that later became crucial to their success. The failure hurt, but the capabilities they built because of it were invaluable. The fifth phase is enhanced re-engagement. This is where you return to pursuing your objectives, but with improved capabilities and refined strategies. This isn't just trying the same thing again with more effort. That's the definition of insanity. This is applying your enhanced capabilities through improved methods. Re-engagement should be gradual and systematic. Don't immediately go for the biggest challenge that defeated you before. Start smaller. Test your improved capabilities in lower-stakes situations. Build confidence and momentum through successive wins. This serves 2 purposes. It lets you verify that your improvements are actually working, and it rebuilds your confidence gradually, rather than putting all your emotional eggs in one basket. As you succeed with smaller challenges, you naturally build toward larger ones. Each success reinforces your improved capabilities and your belief in those capabilities. Now, here's something crucial about the comeback blueprint. It gets faster and more effective the more you use it. Each time you successfully recover from a setback, you build confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. You stop fearing failure because you know you can bounce back. You develop immunity to defeat because you've proven to yourself that setbacks are temporary and valuable. This is incredibly liberating. When you're not terrified of failure, you can take bigger risks. You can pursue bigger opportunities. You can try things that have uncertain outcomes because you know that even if they don't work, you'll be fine. You'll learn. You'll improve. You'll come back stronger. People without this confidence stay stuck in safe, comfortable zones. They avoid anything that might lead to failure, which means they avoid anything that might lead to significant success. People with comeback capability can play bigger games. They can pursue ambitious goals. They can handle high-stakes situations. Because failure isn't the end for them. It's just information and an opportunity to improve. Start building this capability now. Don't wait for a major failure to develop your comeback blueprint. Create it proactively. Think through how you'd handle different types of setbacks. Develop your assessment process. Plan your emotional processing approach. Design your failure analysis framework. Identify capability-building resources. Plan your re-engagement strategy. So when failure does come, you're not starting from scratch. You've got a proven system to follow. You know exactly what to do. You can move through the recovery process efficiently instead of floundering. And remember, every successful person has failed. Every single one. The difference is they failed forward. They used failures as fuel for improvement. They came back stronger than before. You can do the same. Build your comeback blueprint. Trust the process. And watch how setbacks transform from devastating defeats into valuable growth opportunities. Chapter 10. The Power of Your Daily Routine. You know what's interesting? Most people think success comes from big, dramatic moments. The major decision, the breakthrough opportunity, the game-changing event. And sure, those moments matter. But here's what actually determines whether you succeed long-term. What you do every single day when nothing dramatic is happening. Think about someone you know who's consistently successful. Not someone who had one lucky break. Someone who performs well year after year. Someone who keeps achieving and growing regardless of circumstances. What separates them from everyone else isn't what they do occasionally. It's what they do daily. Excellence isn't an event. It's a habit. It's the accumulation of small actions performed consistently over time. And this is actually great news for you, because it means you don't need to wait for perfect conditions or special opportunities. You can start building excellence today through your daily routine. Most people underestimate the power of daily habits because individual actions seem insignificant. Going to the gym once doesn't transform your health. Reading for 20 minutes doesn't make you an expert. Having one good conversation doesn't build a relationship. But here's what compounds. Going to the gym 3 times a week for a year transforms your health. Reading 20 minutes daily for a year makes you significantly more knowledgeable. Having regular quality conversations over months builds deep relationships. Small actions performed consistently create massive results over time. The question is, are you doing the right small actions? Are you building the right daily habits? Because not all daily actions are equally valuable. Some habits create exponential returns. Others provide minimal benefit. You need to be strategic about which habits you develop. Let me break down the categories of habits that create the most value, and you can decide which ones matter most for your situation. The first category is mental conditioning. These are daily practices that strengthen your mind's ability to think clearly, maintain focus, and perform under pressure. Without strong mental conditioning, everything else becomes harder. Mental conditioning might include daily reflection time, where you process what happened and extract lessons. It might be meditation to improve attention control, reading to continuously upgrade your knowledge and thinking, journaling to enhance self-awareness and clarity. These practices don't need to be long. 15 minutes of daily mental conditioning provides more benefit than occasional hour-long sessions. The goal is sustainable routines that strengthen your mind systematically over time. Start with one. Maybe it's 10 minutes of morning reflection where you ask yourself, what matters most today? What am I grateful for? What did I learn yesterday? Simple questions, consistently asked. that keep you mentally sharp and focused. The second category is physical optimization. Your body is the foundation for everything else. Your energy levels, your mental clarity, your emotional stability, your resilience, all of this depends on your physical state. Physical optimization includes regular movement that builds strength and cardiovascular health, proper nutrition that fuels optimal performance, adequate sleep that enables recovery, stress management that prevents burnout. Again, this doesn't require extensive time commitments. 20 minutes of daily exercise provides more benefit than sporadic multi-hour workouts. Consistent good nutrition choices matter more than occasional perfect meal plans. The key is making physical health a non-negotiable daily priority rather than something you handle when convenient. Because your physical state affects absolutely everything else you're trying to accomplish. Maybe your physical optimization routine is a morning workout, or an evening walk, or meal planning on Sundays so you make better food choices all week, or a consistent sleep schedule that ensures adequate rest. Pick what works for your life, but pick something and make it consistent. The third category is skill development. Strategic performers continuously upgrade their capabilities instead of relying on existing skills indefinitely. The world changes, technologies evolve, methods improve. If you're not developing new capabilities, you're falling behind. Daily skill development ensures your abilities evolve faster than changing requirements. This might mean practicing critical professional skills, learning new technologies or methods, developing communication abilities, building technical expertise. The specific skills depend on your field and objectives, but the principle of continuous daily improvement remains constant. Here's what makes this powerful: deliberate practice. Not just doing familiar things, but specifically working on aspects of performance that need improvement. Identifying weaknesses and systematically addressing them through focused practice. Maybe it's 30 minutes daily working on a skill that's crucial for your next career level. Maybe it's practicing difficult conversations. Maybe it's learning new software. Maybe it's improving your writing or speaking. Small but deliberate daily practice compounds into significant capability over months and years. You become someone with continuously expanding abilities rather than someone with static skills that gradually become obsolete. The fourth category is strategic planning. Daily strategic thinking prevents you from getting lost in immediate tasks and losing sight of long-term objectives. Regular planning ensures your daily actions align with strategic goals. This might be daily objective setting, where you identify your top 3 priorities for the day. Weekly progress reviews, where you assess advancement toward goals. Monthly strategy sessions, where you adjust approaches based on results. I recommend starting each day with 10 minutes of strategic planning. Before you open email or check messages or dive into tasks, you ask yourself, what are the most important things I need to accomplish today? What would meaningful progress look like? What should I prioritize if I can't do everything? This simple habit prevents you from spending entire days being busy without being effective. It keeps you focused on what actually matters rather than just responding to whatever's urgent. The fifth category is relationship building. Success requires strong professional and personal relationships. Daily relationship building prevents the network degradation that leaves people isolated when they need support most. This might be regular communication with key contacts, systematic efforts to meet new people, mentorship activities where you help others and gain wisdom, community involvement that builds broader connections. The key is genuine relationship building, not transactional networking. Focus on providing value to others rather than just extracting value for yourself. Strong relationships emerge from consistent mutual benefit over time. Maybe your relationship habit is reaching out to one person daily. A genuine message, not just a like or emoji. Actually connecting, checking in, offering help, sharing something valuable, building real relationships through consistent small interactions. Now, here's the critical part about implementing these habits. Don't try to start everything at once. That's the fastest route to abandoning all of them. Start with one habit, just one. Choose the one that would create the most value in your current situation. Develop it until it becomes automatic, until you do it without thinking about it. Then add another. This gradual approach prevents habit overload. It lets each habit become genuinely established before you add the next one. And it creates sustainable long-term improvement rather than short-term bursts followed by burnout. Also, track your habit performance. What gets measured gets managed. Simple tracking helps maintain consistency and provides feedback on progress. This doesn't need to be complicated. A simple check mark each day, you complete the habit. Visible progress reinforces habit maintenance and creates momentum for additional improvements. Design your environment to support your habits. Make good behaviors easier and bad behaviors harder. Remove obstacles to positive actions. Create obstacles to negative ones. If you want to read daily, put the book on your pillow so you see it before bed. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in your house. Your environment should make the right choices easy and the wrong choices hard. Here's what happens when you build strong daily habits. Excellence becomes automatic rather than something you have to force yourself into. You stop relying on motivation or perfect circumstances to perform well. You create consistent high performance through systematic daily action. After months and years of consistent implementation, you develop capabilities that reactive people can't match. You become someone who performs excellently automatically, not occasionally. This is how champions are built. Not through dramatic moments, but through mundane daily excellence. Through showing up consistently and doing the work even when it's not exciting or glamorous. Anyone can have a good week. Anyone can perform well when motivated. Champions perform well consistently because they've built habits that make excellence their default mode. Start building your excellence habits today. Pick one. Make it small enough to be sustainable. Make it specific enough to be measurable. Track it. Protect it. Let it become automatic. Then add the next one. Over time, you build a daily routine that creates exceptional results through consistent, excellent actions. That's the real secret. That's what separates people who achieve significant long-term success from people who have occasional wins but never build lasting excellence. Your daily routine is either building you or eroding you. There's no neutral. Every day you're either getting stronger or weaker, more capable or less, moving forward or drifting backward. Choose to build. Choose excellence. Choose consistent daily actions that compound into extraordinary capabilities over time. Chapter 11. Knowing what others don't. Let me tell you about a competitive advantage that most people completely overlook. Information. In every situation where you're competing or negotiating or making strategic decisions, the person who knows more has a massive edge over everyone else. Think about the last time you made an important decision where you later learned something that would have completely changed your choice. Maybe you took a job and then discovered things about the company culture that you wished you'd known beforehand. Maybe you invested in something without understanding certain risks. Maybe you committed to a path without realizing better options existed. That feeling of, if only I'd known this earlier, is incredibly frustrating. And here's the thing, it's usually preventable. The information existed. You just didn't have systematic ways of gathering it. Most people are terrible at information management. They consume information randomly. They analyze it superficially. They apply it inconsistently. They mistake data consumption for strategic intelligence gathering. This reactive approach leaves them vulnerable to surprises, unprepared for changes, and unable to anticipate opportunities or threats. They operate with incomplete pictures and make decisions based on limited understanding. But strategic thinkers, they create systematic information advantages that guarantee superior outcomes. They know what others don't know. They see what others don't see. They understand what others don't understand. And this isn't complicated. It's just deliberate instead of random. The foundation of information advantage is knowing what information actually matters. Most people try to know everything about everything. They read random articles, consume news constantly, follow hundreds of sources. This creates information overload without strategic benefit. You don't need to know everything. You need to know the specific information that affects your ability to achieve your objectives. That's it. So start by identifying your key intelligence requirements. What do you need to know to make better decisions? What information would provide competitive advantage? What knowledge gaps are currently limiting your effectiveness? Be specific. Instead of, I need to know about my industry, ask, what specific changes in my industry would affect my career prospects? What skills are becoming more valuable? What technologies are emerging? What companies are growing or struggling? Once you've identified what information matters, develop systematic collection methods. This isn't random browsing. It's targeted information acquisition from carefully selected sources. Maybe you set up automated searches for specific topics. Maybe you establish regular communication with key information sources. Maybe you monitor specific metrics or indicators. Maybe you create feedback systems that provide real-time information about changing conditions. The key is making intelligence gathering routine rather than sporadic. Consistent collection provides trend information that occasional collection cannot. You want to understand how situations are evolving, not just what they look like at random moments. Also, diversify your information sources. Single sources provide limited perspectives and can be biased or incomplete. Multiple independent sources provide confirmation and reveal different aspects of complex situations. Develop a portfolio of sources that includes direct observation, expert analysis, insider perspectives, public data, and industry intelligence. Each type provides different value and helps create comprehensive understanding. Now, gathering information is just the first step. The real value comes from pattern recognition and analysis. Data without analysis is just noise. You need to identify patterns, trends, and relationships that reveal underlying dynamics and predict future developments. Most people are poor at pattern recognition because they process information emotionally rather than analytically. They focus on dramatic events rather than subtle trends. They react to immediate developments rather than understanding long-term patterns. Strategic pattern analysis involves systematic examination of information to identify recurring themes, underlying causes, and predictive indicators. You're looking for signals that predict future developments before those developments become obvious to everyone else. This requires disciplined analytical thinking. Instead of accepting information at face value, examine it for deeper meaning. What does this information reveal about underlying conditions? What patterns does it suggest? What does it predict about future developments? Also, learn to identify anomalies that signal significant changes. Normal patterns provide baseline understanding, but deviations from normal patterns often predict major developments. Spotting these anomalies early provides enormous competitive advantage. For example, if customer satisfaction scores that have been stable for months suddenly start declining, that's an anomaly worth investigating. It might predict future revenue problems. If employee turnover that's been normal suddenly increases, that might signal management issues or cultural problems developing. These early warning signals let you address problems before they become crises, or capitalize on opportunities before competitors notice them. Now here's where most people fail. They gather good information and analyze it well, but then they don't actually apply it effectively. Information advantage only matters if you use it to create better outcomes. Superior decision-making comes from having more complete and accurate information than others have when making similar decisions. You see factors they don't see. You understand dynamics they don't understand. You anticipate consequences they don't anticipate. Optimal timing comes from understanding when conditions will be most favorable for specific actions. Instead of acting when you feel ready, you act when circumstances provide maximum advantage. Information advantages let you identify these optimal timing windows before others do. Strategic positioning comes from understanding how situations will evolve and positioning yourself to benefit from those evolutions. While others position themselves for current conditions, you position yourself for future conditions that you can see coming. Here's a practical example. Let's say through your information gathering, you notice your industry is starting to shift toward a new technology. It's still early. Most people aren't paying attention yet. But you see the pattern developing. You could ignore this information and keep doing what you're doing. Or you could use this advantage strategically. You could start developing skills in this technology before it becomes essential. You could position yourself with companies leading this shift. You could build expertise that will be highly valuable when the shift accelerates. When the change becomes obvious to everyone else, you're already positioned to benefit. You're not scrambling to catch up. You're ahead because you saw it coming and prepared. That's information advantage in action. One more crucial element: information security. Your information advantages provide value only as long as others don't have the same advantages. So you need strategic discretion about what you share and with whom. This doesn't mean being paranoid or secretive. It means being thoughtful. When you've identified an opportunity before others see it, you probably don't want to broadcast it to everyone. When you've developed insights about market changes, you might want to act on those insights before sharing them widely. Sometimes the best way to apply information advantages is subtly, without revealing that you have them. This prevents competitors from either copying your approach or deliberately countering it. Also, practice information discipline. Not all information is equally valuable. Consuming too much information can actually reduce effectiveness by creating analysis paralysis or distracting you from what actually matters. Develop filtering systems that focus your attention on the most valuable information while screening out irrelevant noise. This allows you to maintain deep understanding of what matters without being overwhelmed by what doesn't. I recommend a weekly information review. Set aside an hour to process the week's information. What did you learn? What patterns are you noticing? What's changing? What needs attention? What opportunities are emerging? This regular review prevents information from piling up unprocessed. It helps you identify patterns across multiple pieces of information. It ensures you're actually extracting value from your information gathering efforts. The compound effect of systematic information advantage creates escalating competitive benefits over time. The more effectively you gather and apply information, the better your decisions become. The better your decisions, the better your outcomes. The better your outcomes, the stronger your position for gathering even better information. It's a positive spiral that keeps building. Start creating your information advantage today. Identify what information matters most for your objectives. Develop systematic ways to gather that information. Practice analyzing it for patterns and insights. Apply what you learn to make better decisions and take better actions. Within months, you'll notice you're seeing things others miss. You're anticipating changes before they happen. You're making decisions with better information than your peers. You're operating from a position of knowledge while others are guessing. That's a competitive advantage that compounds over time, and it's completely within your reach if you're systematic about building it. Chapter 12. Operating at your peak. All right, let's talk about something that most people get completely wrong. Peak performance. Everyone wants to perform at their best, right? But most people think it just happens randomly. They perform well when conditions are perfect and poorly when they're not. They wait for peak performance to show up naturally instead of creating it deliberately. Here's what you need to understand. Peak performance isn't accidental. It's not the result of luck or perfect circumstances or random inspiration. Peak performance is the predictable outcome of systematic preparation and optimal state management. Champions don't occasionally perform well. They consistently operate at their maximum capacity. And this isn't because they're naturally talented or blessed with perfect conditions. It's because They understand how to systematically access and maintain their optimal state. You can learn this too. The foundation is state management. Your mental and physical state determines the quality of everything you do. When you're in an optimal state, complex tasks become easier. Creative solutions emerge naturally. Sustained high-level performance becomes possible. But most people have no control over their state. They feel energetic when conditions happen to be favorable and depleted when they're not. They think clearly when they're well-rested and poorly when they're not. They're completely dependent on external factors to determine how well they function. Strategic state management means developing the ability to access optimal states regardless of external conditions. You learn to generate energy when you need it. Maintain focus when distractions arise. Sustain confidence when challenges mount. Let's break down the key elements of state management. First, energy optimization. Peak performance requires sustained high energy levels. But most people's energy fluctuates randomly throughout the day, creating periods of high capability followed by periods of reduced effectiveness. Energy optimization involves understanding your natural energy patterns and systematically enhancing them. This includes managing sleep to maximize recovery and alertness, using nutrition to fuel sustained performance, timing demanding tasks during natural energy peaks, employing recovery techniques that rapidly restore energy when depleted. The goal isn't constant maximum energy. That's unsustainable. The goal is having reliable access to high energy when you need it most, and efficient recovery systems that prevent energy depletion from accumulating. Start by tracking your energy levels throughout the day for a week. Notice when you naturally have more energy and when you tend to crash. Then schedule your most important, demanding work during your peak energy windows. Use lower energy periods for routine tasks that don't require peak performance. Also pay attention to what restores your energy. For some people, it's movement. For others, it's quiet time alone. For others, it's social interaction. Whatever works for you, build it into your routine as energy recovery time. Second, attention management. Peak performance requires the ability to maintain intense focus on important tasks while filtering out irrelevant distractions. In our hyper-connected world, attention management has become a critical competitive advantage. Most people's attention is constantly fragmented. They try to multitask, respond to interruptions immediately, process multiple information streams simultaneously. This divided attention prevents deep thinking and high-quality work. Attention management involves developing the discipline to focus completely on single tasks and the systems to protect that focus from interruption. Create distraction-free work environments. Establish communication boundaries that prevent constant interruption. Train your mind to sustain concentration for extended periods. This might mean turning off notifications during focused work time. It might mean having specific hours when you're unavailable for non-emergencies. It might mean using website blockers to prevent distraction during important tasks. Deep focus capabilities compound over time. The more you practice sustained attention, the easier it becomes to maintain concentration even in challenging environments. You develop immunity to distractions that derail most people's performance. Third, emotional regulation. Peak performance requires emotional states that support rather than hinder optimal functioning. Anxiety, frustration, and doubt undermine performance. Confidence, calm alertness, and determined focus enhance it. Most people are victims of their emotional states. They perform poorly when they feel negative emotions and well when they feel positive emotions. They have no systematic methods for managing emotional states to support performance objectives. Emotional regulation involves understanding how emotions affect performance and developing techniques for generating optimal emotional states on demand. This might include visualization techniques that build confidence, breathing exercises that reduce anxiety, mental rehearsal methods that program successful responses to challenging situations. Before important performances, develop a pre-performance ritual that puts you in an optimal emotional state. Maybe it includes visualization of successful execution. Maybe it includes breathing exercises to calm nerves. Maybe it includes reviewing your preparation to build confidence. Whatever works for you, make it a consistent ritual. This creates psychological preparation that reliably triggers optimal performance states. Fourth, physical optimization. Your body is the foundation for everything else. Physical strength, cardiovascular fitness, and overall health directly affect mental performance, emotional stability, and sustained capability. Physical optimization involves systematic development of the physical capabilities that support peak performance, strength training that builds physical resilience, cardiovascular exercise that enhances energy and endurance, flexibility work that prevents injury and maintains mobility, recovery practices that enable sustained high performance. This also includes nutritional strategies that fuel optimal performance and sleep protocols that maximize recovery and restoration. Don't think of physical fitness as separate from professional or intellectual performance. Your body must be capable of supporting the demands of peak performance over extended periods. Fifth, recovery protocols. Peak performance is unsustainable without adequate recovery. The ability to perform at maximum capacity repeatedly requires systematic restoration of mental, emotional, and physical resources. Recovery protocols include immediate post-performance routines that begin restoration processes, longer-term recovery practices that prevent accumulated fatigue, strategic rest periods that maintain performance capacity over time. This might be a decompression routine after intense work sessions, regular breaks throughout the day, weekly rest days, annual vacation periods, whatever helps you genuinely recover rather than just powering through until you burn out. Many high performers resist recovery because it feels like wasted time. But recovery isn't wasted time. It's the time that enables sustained high performance. Without it, you gradually degrade until you can't perform well anymore. Now, here's how this all integrates. When energy, attention, emotion, and physicality are all optimized simultaneously, the combined effect exceeds the sum of individual improvements. Everything works together to create peak performance capacity. Develop performance rituals that reliably trigger optimal states. These are systematic routines that prepare your mind and body for high-level performance. Maybe your performance ritual includes light exercise to activate your body, strategic breathing to calm your nerves, visualization to prepare mentally, review of your preparation to build confidence, whatever combination works for you. The ritual serves multiple purposes. It creates psychological transition from normal state to performance state. It triggers physiological changes that optimize performance. It provides confidence through familiar preparation. Customize your ritual based on your specific needs, but always include elements that optimize energy, focus attention, regulate emotions, and prepare for the specific demands ahead. The goal of all this isn't occasional excellence, it's consistent operation at your maximum capacity. When these systems become habitual, peak performance becomes your normal operating mode, rather than something you occasionally achieve. Start building this today. Pick one element to focus on first. Maybe it's energy optimization through better sleep and strategic work scheduling. Maybe it's attention management through distraction-free work periods. Maybe it's emotional regulation through pre-performance rituals. Develop that one element until it's solid. Then add the next. Gradually build a comprehensive approach to state management that allows you to access peak performance reliably. Within months, you'll notice significant differences. Tasks that used to drain you become more manageable. Focus that used to require intense willpower becomes more natural. Performance that used to be inconsistent becomes more reliable. You become someone who operates at a consistently high level, rather than someone whose performance depends on external circumstances. That's a competitive advantage that creates exceptional results over time. Chapter 13 to 15. Your complete transformation. Leadership starts with leading yourself. If you want others to follow you, demonstrate competence, integrity, and results through your actions, not your words. Earn trust by making good decisions consistently, keeping commitments, and putting team success ahead of your ego. Lead by example in everything you do. Think long-term, not just quarterly. Build compound advantages that grow exponentially over time. Invest in skills that provide leverage across multiple areas. Accumulate resources that appreciate in value. Develop relationships authentically over years, not transactionally overnight. Create systems that generate results automatically. Practice strategic patience while maintaining tactical urgency in daily execution. Your transformation happens in phases. First, awareness of your reactive patterns. Then, building strategic foundations through deliberate practice. Next, implementing these approaches in real situations. Finally, making strategic thinking your automatic default mode. This isn't a quick fix. This is a fundamental shift in how you operate, from reactive to strategic, from hoping to creating, from victim to architect of your circumstances. Your journey starts now, not someday, not when you feel ready. Now, pick one principle and implement it today. Let each win build momentum for the next. Stop hoping things work out. Start making them work out. Your transformation begins with your next decision.